In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, family. Welcome to another powerful episode of America in Black and White, where we honor the voices shaping our communities, our classrooms, and our collective future. Tonight, we sit with a man whose life's work has been rooted in transformation, not just of schools, but of systems, of expectations, and of the very pathways our children walk. In a nation where educational equity remains one of the greatest civil rights battles of our time, there are leaders who don't just talk about change, they architect it. Leaders who walk into the most challenged schools and see brilliance waiting to be unlocked. Leaders who understand that data is not just numbers, but stories. Stories of potential, stories of possibility, stories of children who deserve the world. Our guest tonight is one of those leaders. For over 30 years, Dr. Mark E. King has been a force in public education, a principal, an instructional superintendent, a deputy chief, an executive director, an author, and now the vice president of education at Arts for Learning, Maryland. His work has reshaped school culture, elevated academic performance, expanded arts integration, and opened doors for thousands of young people across Maryland, Washington, D.C., and beyond. But behind the titles is a man shaped by community, by mentors, and by giants, including Eugene Grant, Thomas A. Blue, and Mr. Ward, three Black men whose influence helped mold his leadership, his discipline, and his unwavering commitment to excellence. Tonight, we explore that journey, the mission, and the legacy of a man who has dedicated his life to ensuring that every child, regardless of zip code, receives an education worthy of their promise. Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 81. This is Purpose. This is Impact. This is America in Black and White. And let's welcome Dr. King to the stage.
And it's a pleasure to be here. It's kind of humbling to hear that. And when you mentioned Eugene Grant, he was my junior high school principal. And when I wrote the book is dedicated to him, Thomas A. Blue, the assistant principal, and my brother who passed away in 2015. So it's a bittersweet moment because I talked to him prior to the book getting published, but when I went down there to give him a book and do the book signing, he had passed away, so I was able to give it to his wife. So it's a real moment to hear that name.
Well, I'm glad that you're here today, just like I'm sure our audience is just as glad. And I appreciate you for doing the things that you do because it definitely has impact and it makes a difference in our communities. Let's start off with, what I call giving people the opportunity to get to know a little bit more about who you are, Dr. King. Can you tell us what was your childhood like, and when did education first become a calling for you?
Well, growing up, I was born in Navy Hospital, North Charlotte, South Carolina. By the time I was in sixth grade, I had been to five different elementary schools. Not because of a negative thing, but my mother was always striving to do more. So she was always moving upward. And it was difficult. It was difficult because when you go to a new school, you're a new person, things of that nature. So you learn to adapt to different environments and you learn to adapt to different people. So that was the early part of my life. Then in 1981, look, March 7th to be exact, I moved to Fernandina Beach, Florida. That Monday was March 9th. I went to Fernandina Beach High School. My first class was with Johnny T. Smith, African American male teacher. I had never had an African American male teacher in my experience. So I was like, okay, this is different. So I go to second period. Then there's Charles A. Albert. He's the science teacher. So at this point, I'm a little, I don't want to say confused, but I'm fascinated because this is something that I've never seen before. I later find out that Charles Albert was actually the mayor of Fernandina Beach, Florida.
Oh, wow.
So I go through my day, and then I get to the end of the day, and Buford A. Ward is my math teacher. So now I am really blown because these are things I have never seen before. So I leave the last period of the day, and I'm excited. I'm running down the steps. I'm going home to tell my mother I have an African American male teacher and more than one. Wow. I get to the bottom of the steps. I run into Eugene Grant, literally. So Eugene Grant was about 6'3", I want to say 250 pounds, big guy. And I'm in seventh grade, so I drop my little books. And while I'm picking these books up, I look up at him. He looks down at me. He says, "Boy, stop running my hallway." I will never forget that. Literally, March 9th, 1981. Mm-hmm. I say, "Yes, sir." I pick up my books. I go get on the bus because this is the first time I've ever ridden a bus in my life. Mm-hmm. And I can't miss this bus because my mother's at work. I go out to get on the bus, and I don't know which bus to get on. Oh, Thomas A. Blue, the assistant principal, is out there on bus duty. He tells me which bus to get on. I get on that bus. I will never forget March 9th, 1981, because seeing African American males in a classroom and then seeing African American males in leadership roles, that day I decided that is what I wanted to do. Because this is 1981. The only African American male I had ever seen in a three-piece suit was named George Jefferson. That was not my reality.
Right.
But when you see that, the impression it had upon me, and later on, a sidebar, FAMU Rattler graduate, Johnny T. Smith, Thomas A. Blue, and Buford Ward were all graduates of FAMU. Mm-hmm. They rented a bus and took us to a FAMU homecoming when I was in 8th grade in 1982. Mm-hmm. I went to that FAMU homecoming and I decided I wanted to go to FAMU. Mm-hmm. So not only did they make me want to be an educator, they dictated where I would go to school. I came back from that trip. I said, "Mom, I'm going to FAMU." She said, "Okay, how you gonna pay for that?" I was like, "Oh." So these are things as an 8th grader that are now put inside of me that you have to pay for this opportunity to do the job that you just saw being done. So I said, "Mom, I'm gonna get a job." I said, "Okay." 1983, 9th grade, I have an early birthday. I got a job. I was a busboy at 1878 Steakhouse. I bus tables to save money to go to FAMU because Johnny T. Smith, Buford A. Ward, and Thomas A. Blue went to FAMU. And honestly, I remember them down and it's obvious to the middle initial. That's how much it meant to me. And when I graduated from FAMU, I moved to Prince George's County and became a middle school social studies teacher because they were my junior high school influences, mentors. And honestly, it's nothing they said. Their presence made me want to do that.
Well, I got a couple of comments here. We'll have a comment here that's in the chat. First of all, I want to thank everyone that's here in the chat, especially the folk that come all the time. I appreciate you for being here and supporting us. On the screen here, it says, "That's how you do it." That's from Energized Educator.
Everybody that's in education has an obligation to those that came before them. And even outside of education, there are people that I owe, that I am determined not only to pay them back, but to pay that forward. I do, I was at a conference, the bond conference at Bowie State, and the title, excuse me, the title of the presentation was The Opportunity, the Occupation, and the Obligation. So for me, this is just not about teaching and learning. It's not about supervising principals. It's not about being deputy chiefs. It's about putting people in a position where they can be successful because somebody did that for me when I was 12 years old. So that's my obligation. So I try to give everybody who hears me talk an understanding of you owe people and you need to pay those people.
So, what personal experiences prepared you for the challenges of public education?
I think going to a lot of different elementary schools mentally prepared me to help me understand how children transition into a new building. And there's a level of fear. Let me just be honest. There's a level of fear. And there's a level of uncertainty in who you are. But there also needs to be an adult in that building that you can turn to and you can go to. And you can have conversations with about your concerns. I got a great story for you. When I was a middle school principal in Prince George's County, I had the opportunity to host some middle school staff members and principals from a charter school in Washington, D.C. Now, this was after we were able to make significant academic gains. I mean, double-digit math, double-digit ELA. So they wanted to see what we're doing. So I'm in my office meeting with these people, and I have an open door policy for children. Now, adults, you might have to knock. But if you under the age of 18, you can come into the office because you obviously need something. He comes into the office and he looks at me and he's like, "Man, I want to know why I can't go to PE." I looked at him. I looked at my guest and I said, "First, you need to introduce yourself." He introduced himself. There's about 5 or 6 people. Introduced yourself. Then I pulled out what I used to call back then, this was 20 years ago, the money book.
Okay.
This is the data for every child in my building, every quarter since you have been in this building. I go to his name. I said, "I need you to really work on fractions. If you really work on fractions and you demonstrate proficiency the next quarter, I will change your schedule and put you in PE." He looked at me and said, "Okay." And he's about to walk out of the room. I said, "You not gonna say bye? You just gonna walk out the room?" He was like, "You know what? Bye. I didn't mean to interrupt y'all's meeting." And I told the people in the room, I said, "Listen, these are my children. Our meeting is important, but his life depends on what I do and say right now." So I had to take care of him. And then we continued to meet, and they were just like, "Wow." It's like, no, it's not wow. This is what you do. This is an obligation. I owe him that. You get one chance in second grade, one chance in fifth grade, one chance in seventh grade. I have to ensure that I did everything I could do in 180 days to prepare you for the next grade. And that's what I do.
Wow. When did you realize you had a gift for transforming school culture?
My second year as an assistant principal.
Mm.
My first year as an assistant principal, brand new assistant principal, and in full transparency, I did not know what I was doing. I did what my principal told me to do. But by the second year, I understood that everything is relationship driven. If I can create a relationship with children, I can transform their behavior. Because too often we have good teachers, and I'm not going to disparage teachers, we have good teachers who don't understand the developmental pathway of children. Mm-hmm. They are going to be what James Comer said, they are going to be at this age.
Right.
So you need to understand as the adult, I need you to be the adult and understand that, especially when you're talking middle school, this child is 12 years old today, but when they come into your classroom tomorrow, they're going to be 21. So there is going to be moments where you like, okay, you could be 21 today, but what you're not going to do is disrespect me in this classroom and in this building. And I made sure it was clear to children. I understand, but what you are not going to do is stop 30 other children in this classroom from learning. So I would personally go get them, and I talked to you. I was like, just come here. No, Mr. King, I didn't do that. I get that. I didn't accuse you of anything. I just said, come here, let's talk about it. And when you get the opportunity to have a conversation with a child, you understand fully what they brought into that classroom that the teacher does not even know.
So what values guided you through your 30-year journey in education?
Equity.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody deserves the opportunity. The opportunity. And too often what I saw were children being deprived of the opportunity. I don't know what you can or cannot do if you do not have the opportunity. I go back to when I was assistant principal. We were trying to make a determination as to how can we move this school academically. And it took us about a day, and I mean conversations, confrontations, whatever, because I don't disagree with people. I disagree with ideas. We can still like each other. It's okay. I just don't agree with your idea. Yes. So we determined that arts integration in a classroom will give children the opportunity to experience art while also addressing the academic standard. And that's what I do now as the vice president at Arts for Learning Maryland. Opportunity. That's all I can give you.
Right. So as you think about that, because I think that's a very key part to the education system is to be, the school has to be connected to the child. And you mentioned equity. So in this case, I don't know if there was equity or not because probably it wasn't. But if there is no equity, what were some of the things that you thought of that you could do to bring the equity to the school?
Be combative. I will tell you, there are people in every system that I've ever been in that we didn't see eye to eye. I don't want to say we don't get along, but we don't see eye to eye. Mm-hmm. Because I work for people under 18. Ooh. And too often you have people in district offices and in educational systems that work for people over 18. I don't work for people over 18. So we are not going to agree. I got another great story for you. So after my first year as a principal, I decided I wanted a 7th grade algebra class. This is middle school. I had 1,000 children, 7th and 8th grade. Everybody, you can't do that. There's no way in the world. And in my mind, I can remember my mother saying, the only way you can do what nobody else has ever done is do what they have never done. I wanted a 7th grade algebra class because algebra is the gatekeeper. The 9th grade retention rate, 8 times out of 10, lives in algebra. If I can have a relationship with 500 children in 7th and or 8th grade to where they pass algebra, I have eliminated one of the hurdles to graduation. So my master scheduler, and by trade, I'm a master scheduler, and I love Dana Blair, the best master scheduler I ever had. We going back and forth about this 7th grade algebra class. So she said, man, I've got about 22 kids eligible for algebra. I said, eligible based on what? She said, there's a systemic test when they come into middle school, and you test on this scale, blah, blah, blah. She said, but I really can't run a class with 22 simply because that will make everybody else's class much larger. I said, well, take the next 4 children on that assessment that they gave, and you put them in algebra. She said, man, are you sure? I said, yes, because children don't rise to low expectations. Put them in that algebra class. That algebra class had a 99% pass rate on the high school assessment as 7th graders.
Oh, wow.
Because that expectation was that you are going to pass this class. That's why you are in here. The 1% who did not pass, and it wasn't his fault, he transferred out and moved to Texas.
Okay.
So now you've got this 7th grade algebra class. The progression of math is geometry. 8th grade math teacher Karen Bum says, I've taught geometry before. I said, well, you about to teach it again. So now you create a culture. When we're talking about the culture, we create a culture where the expectation is that you can and you will. And you are going to have all the support that you need to be successful. So you have to create a culture and a climate where expectation is the norm. I mean, where excellence is the norm. It's not outside. Oh, wow. No. This is what we do. And this is how we're going to do it. Yeah.
So tell us this, Dr. King. How did your upbringing influence your leadership style?
My mother, I was raised by a single mother. My mother raised me and my brother by herself. Work ethic. When I was growing up, my mother used to be a telephone operator because once upon a time you could press 0 on the phone and get somebody to answer the phone.
Yeah, you could.
That was her job. But 3 nights a week, she also worked at Casual Corner from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And I was a young kid, so she's like, "Yeah, you got to go to work with me. I'm not about to leave you home, little boy, because I know you." To see her work that hard and to understand the progression of where we went every time we moved, it was clear to me that nobody's going to outwork me. That's not going to happen. So my leadership style was present.
Okay.
In the book, there's a paragraph in a DC charter school principal is reading the book. I got to meet with him next week. He sent me a highlighted copy of a paragraph in that book. And it says, where you spend most of your time, that's what's most important to you. If you spend most of your time in the hallway, culture climate is most important to you. If you spend most of your time in your office, paperwork is most important to you. But if you spend most of your time in the classroom, instruction is what is most important to you. So I took the work ethic that I saw my mother provide. I walked those hallways, and once everybody was in class, I go into a classroom. Let me see what's going on in this classroom. Here's a good joke for you. I was in one classroom. It wasn't good. And I had a little boy tell me, you should come in here more often. I said, why? Because it seems like she's trying to teach today. I said, oh, okay. I went back because I remember I worked for the people under 18. If you tell me to come back because she actually tried to teach today, I'll be back. And when I come back, she's going to teach. Yes. Yeah. So the leadership style is presence where it's needed in the classroom. After you walk the halls, you go in that classroom to see if somebody's teaching today. Because culture climate, it always starts with culture climate. Nobody learns in the hallway. There are no classes in the hallway. We're gonna get out this hallway, we're going to somebody's class. Yeah.
So is that old philosophy of working while walking?
Absolutely. I have had children in my office who got put out of a class. I will take them and do an observation. Come on, let's go observe this class. You tell me what you think.
Really?
Because now I'm empowering them. They're like, oh wow, you trust me to tell you what the teacher's doing? Absolutely. You in the class? Come on, let's go see. We somebody they don't even know. Come on, let's go to this class. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you think. Yes.
So what was the moment you knew you wanted to become a principal?
I was an assistant principal for 6 years, and my principal told me. I was content being assistant principal because remember, Thomas A. Blue was the assistant principal. I wanted to be him. I'm good. And after year 5, we had a superintendent, Dr. Iris Metz. She decided, and it was a brilliant idea, that we are going to have children who are not proficient go to their middle school over the summer to get acclimated to where they're going. My principal said we can have it here if he's in charge. And my mom was like, what are you doing? I've never been a principal. She said, listen, I will be here. You know what you're doing. You had to believe and you had to trust it. God love Gail going forward. So we had the highest gains of anybody in the 18th largest school district in the country for those 20 days. So my name kind of got on the radar. So we go into year 6, and she's like, okay, yeah, it's time for you to go. And it was like, wow, what did I do? She's like, she said, that's not it. Because listen, I was not the best child, and I probably was not the best assistant principal. But what I did do was listen. Year 6, she told me that it was time for me to go being a principal. I came back to her office the next day. I said, I want to show you something. I had a folder. He said, what's this? I said, over 6 years, everything you told me not to do, I wrote down and I put in this folder. She said, you are kidding me. I said, no, here you go. She said, yeah, you ready. So I interviewed for the first school. They said, you don't talk enough. I was like, okay. And I will take that. Feedback is what improves you at any level. John Hattie's research says it is top 10 as far as improving student achievement. So if it's top 10 as far as improving student achievement, why wouldn't it be top 10 for improving adult performance? But anyway, so I go to the second interview. They said, oh, you talk too much. I left. I went back to my school. I said, I'm not doing this again. I'm good with this and I'm happy. He said, okay. 3 days later, I get a call from the regional superintendent. She said, I'm going to need you to pack your bag because you're going to James Madison Middle School. I never interviewed for James Madison Middle School. But
Wow.
apparently, during the second interview, the people on that panel said he's very good, but we want to hire somebody in-house who is our assistant principal.
Mhm.
Now, the caveat is when I first started teaching middle school, I was a teacher at James Madison Middle School. So now you are sending me back to where I was a teacher to be the principal, which is hard because as a teacher, I know what we're doing, I know how we do it. But now as the principal, there's a different standard, there's a different level. So that's how that all transpired.
So, what personal sacrifices did you make to serve at the level you have?
I missed entirely too many milestones for my own children. If there is one thing I could do differently, I would be more selfish. Now, major milestones I always made. Some milestones I was late because I was busy taking care of other people's children. But if there's one regret, it's that I missed entirely too many milestones. And as I matured as a principal, I understood that these are your children, these thousand children, these parents send you these children every day, but you have children at your house.
Mhm.
So that is one thing that I regret. And before I became a middle school principal, because I've never applied for a job that my wife didn't agree to, because everything you do has an effect on your household. So before I became a high school principal, I sat down with my wife after getting permission, and she's like, "Okay, this is what you have to do." And I wrote down the list of what she wanted me to do in order to be a high school principal. I still have that list 20 years later because those are the things that are needed in your house in order for you to be successful as a person. Because remember, Charles, I'm Mark King, principal. I'm not Principal Mark King. I make the title. The title does not make me.
Mhm.
So I am not going to walk around saying, "Oh, I'm Principal Mark King. My name is Mark King. How you doing?" I had a conversation with somebody earlier today talking about, why don't you make people call you doctor? I said, because they call me other stuff when I'm not around. I'm not worried about what you call me. I'm worried about the people under 18.
Right.
And that's why in my position now as the Vice President of Education and Arts for Learning, I'm using research and evidence-based strategies to provide equity in those zip codes where we have been depriving children intentionally for entirely too long.
Mm. So let's talk a little bit about your principalship, both in middle and high school. That leadership role. What were the biggest challenges you faced as a high school principal?
Getting acclimated to being a high school principal
Mhm.
and ninth grade retention rate. When I had my first graduating class was over 600 children. Because when I was a high school principal, I had 3,000 children.
Mhm.
Was over 600 children. But in that class was 600 and I want to say 650. So everybody is celebrating. Nobody in this district has ever graduated 600 children, which is a great
Oh, wow.
accomplishment. They did a
Yeah.
fantastic job. 600 out of 600 and out of 650, fantastic. So I'm sitting there and everybody's talking about how great it is, and I was just like, "What happened to those other 46?" And it was like, "Huh?" I said, "We had 650, right?" He was like, "Yeah, I think 650, 650, 651. What happened to those other 46?" And it was just like, "Wow." I said, "Man, somebody go find out what happened to those." Remember, I work with children. There were 46 children that I felt in my heart of hearts that I failed. And that's hard to understand that you poured everything that you could into those 46 children and they were not successful. I said, somebody go find out what happened to those 46. About a
Wow.
day or two later, they came back. They said, well, 23 of them are in summer school. These 20 transfer, whatever. So as long as I can account for every child, I felt a little better. But it's hard to know that those 46 children did not matriculate with those 606 children. Because I always started with 1,000 ninth graders. By 10th grade, it was 900, 850. By the junior year, 700 and 750. By senior year, that's how I got it like 650. I was just like, there is something that I am not doing organizationally because I'm losing. And let me be clear, I'm very competitive now. But I'm losing children every year, and I need to know why. And as I dug deeper into it, I realized the ninth grade failure rate is a sixth grade failure rate. The sixth grade failure rate is a third grade failure rate. The third grade failure rate is a kindergarten failure rate because we're not giving these children the foundational skills that they need to be successful when they get to these grades.
Oh my God, Dr. King, you hit that right on the head. And now maybe you can tell us this because this is the thing that I've always been pondering about is that there could be so many great teachers that are in these schools. There could be many, many great principals in
Mhm,
this school. Can
mhm.
you tell us, are they advocating or are they just going along with the system?
A few things with that question. First, good teachers do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
The kids come, whatever grade level they on, they leave on same grade level. Great teachers move children. That's number one. Number two, when I went to Baltimore City and started supervising elementary school principals and K-8 principals, I realized you don't have the best teachers in the right classroom.
Ah,
In an elementary setting, your best teacher should be in kindergarten. That is where your best teacher should be. And then you need to loop that teacher to first grade and loop that teacher to second grade and then hand them off to third grade teacher or keep looping because that the first 2 weeks of school and they're getting acclimated to the routine and how we do things. I don't have time for that. School has started. I
right,
don't have time for them to get acclimated. So if Charles King taught me last year and I walked in your classroom, you teach me this year, I know the routine.
right,
That's
right.
already established. But the best and I've observed teachers pre-K through 12 and even observed interns, teachers doing their practicum to be teachers. Best teachers I've ever seen in kindergarten. Oh, without question, kindergarten. Because it is the hardest thing to teach a child phonics.
Well, I don't. I guess maybe that's probably dealing with timing because I think, well, I can remember when I was coming up that I always learned to do one thing when it comes to when if it's like if it's enunciating, if it's spelling, you always syllableize that word and you get it. And today, I don't see kids doing that because I don't know if they can do that or not. And that's another version of phonics, in other words, is why I'm saying that. And
Mhm.
that maybe it was because my mother was a preschool teacher and she did that for so long that she made sure that this is how it was done. And so my thing is, when I hear the passion that comes from you, and I'm sure that you were motivating some of those teachers, if not all, What do you think some of them was missing? Because a lot of teachers are pretty much they're not hitting the home run. They're hitting the singles.
It's That's another loaded question. It's professional development, number one. And number two, it's teacher training at a college level.
Okay.
I I was trained secondary social studies, 6 through 12. I still had to take a reading class so I can learn how to teach reading. So the work that Dr. Williams is doing at Morgan State University with local schools so they can go in and see, and with local districts so they understand that what you are walking into and the intentionality behind how you teach. I was a special education student in third grade. And then the next year, I went to the next school. I was in gifted and talented. So I realized right then, I said, oh, y'all don't know what y'all doing. How did you go from being special education to gifted and talented?
Yep.
And one of the things my mother explained to me, she was like, when they told me you were special education, I went to the meeting, I listened to them, and they were talking about, because back then Ritalin was brand new. And she said, I listened to them. I said, like, well, no, I don't think we're going to use that type of medicine. I think I got some medicine at home that might be more beneficial. We left that building. When we got home, my mother touched these hind parts and said, every time they call me, I'm going to touch these hind parts. So as a result, the call decreased, attention span increased, because there were natural consequences to your behavior.
Yes, sir.
So now my teacher's not dealing with that because she knows there's a medicine at home that will take care of that problem. And all she had to do was like, Mr. King. I was like, no, ma'am. That's all you got to say. Because I know what that meant. Now, granted, growing up, I was not the best of children. So I was in sixth grade. I'll never forget it. My favorite sixth grade teacher. I was out of PE. I get called into the building. They say, oh, you need to go to Miss Summers' class. I go to Miss Summers' class. My mother's sitting there. I just bust out crying. Because I know what's about to happen. And Miss Summers like, oh, no, Mark, it's not that bad. Just sit down. We're going to talk about some things. And all the while, my mother's professor, she's sitting there. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. And all the while, I'm sitting there just like, you just don't know. You just signed my death certificate. When I get home, it is going to be a whole nother thing. But I needed that. I needed it. And now I can appreciate it because she cared enough not to let it go. She said, look, this boy gets it in talented, but he need to shut up. She cared enough to make that call to where my mother could provide that medicine to correct the behavior. Because punishment is corrective. It's not punitive.
Right.
Corrective behavior is what you're trying to do with punishment. You're not punishing the child because what they did. I'm punishing you because I need you to correct that behavior. And that's what's lost. That's what's lost a lot of times.
So, how did you manage a school of over 2,800 students?
I had 6 of the best assistant principals that ever came out of the 18th largest school district in the country. I empowered them to do their jobs. I still walk them hallways and go in the classroom like I always did. But those 6 assistant principals ran that building. I don't take credit for graduating 606 children. Christy Holden was the assistant principal of that class. She was the lead assistant principal. She did that. So I'm clear with people. All you have to do is be instructionally sound, be visible, and manage people. A lot of principals get in trouble because they don't know how to manage people.
Yeah.
And we go back to being, I'm Principal Mark King. No, you're not. You Mark King principal. Because if you don't manage these people, in 3 years, you will no longer be Principal Mark King. Because you can be replaced. And teachers know it. They're like, listen, He doing all that, man. Teach your class and wait it out. And it's true.
I want to go back to something you said earlier about your best teachers, and you said that you should put them like just like basically putting them back to bring those children forward. Can you tell us that concept? Where did that concept come from, and how exactly does that work?
The foundational skills are what are
Mhm.
critical. I know a teacher in Baltimore City. She teaches kindergarten now. She taught pre-K and she teaches kindergarten and she looped with children.
Mhm.
Um, I had observed her so many times. I was like, look, yep, she got it. So one
Mhm.
time we had a superintendent come in, and I was like, I know I'm taking you. You know, you want to show off your best car. And she tried to do a lesson that she did not plan, and it didn't go well. And after the fact, I told her, I said, why didn't you just do what you planned to do? She said, because the superintendent was here. Well, I'm like, listen, I don't care about the superintendent. That child is 6. I need that child to get what you give them every day.
Mhm.
That's when I realized the foundational skills and planning are what are critical to student success 5, 6 years later. For example, when I was growing up, they had Schoolhouse Rock used to come on between the cartoon on Saturday morning.
Yes, sir. It's every Saturday morning, ABC.
How many foundational skills were taught with Schoolhouse Rock?
All of them.
All of them, from verb, conjunction. You had math fact, all of them. So now at Arts for Learning Maryland, as the vice president of education, everything is a production. There's songs, there's dancing, because that's how you connect it to the real world.
Okay.
You may not even like math, but if there's a math song, you can remember those multiplication facts.
Yeah.
I mean, look, ABC is a song. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, because that's how it sticks. And it's research and evidence based. And in our out of school programs, we got a data to back it up. In urban districts, yes, absolutely.
What strategies help your school achieve consecutive AYP gains?
Taking care of teachers. If you take care of the people who take care of you, they will take care of your children. There's a great book. If you don't feed the teachers, they eat the children.
Mm.
I have always taken, and I. Some people say I spoil my teachers. I said, yeah, but they get double-digit gains every year. They don't deserve to be spoiled. Nobody else is producing the number that they produce. What do you want me to do to them? Except accolades, mentor them, make them to assistant principals, make them into lead teachers, make them into department chairs. Absolutely. So in the book, there's a quote. You need to lead like the teachers run the building because they actually do. If you don't believe me, check one payday Friday if 5 teachers take leave. What you plan to do?
Wow.
You going to teach 5 classes, or you going to teach a class? Your AP going to teach a class? Everybody running scrambling because you're not taking care of your people.
Mhm.
If you take care of your people, they take care of you because there's a mutual respect. I respect the game that you got in that classroom. 30 different children, 4 periods a day. That's 120 different personalities. On top of the 120 personalities that are adults in this building, on top of the office staff, on top of the admin team. I respect what you do. And I would never diminish that.
Mhm.
But I need you to teach my children now. Let's be clear. Don't play with my children because they get one chance at this grade level. So don't play with them. But yeah, it was the teachers who did. I don't.
did it take to remove a middle school from the state's reconstitution list? Tell us what did you do when that happened?
We had a good staff. And what I felt was all we needed was a little bit more, a little push. So every year, I used to have a slogan. The first year that I was principal, I was like, man, just expect a little bit more. Expect a little bit more out of you, the children, the parents, the adults. Just expect a little bit more. And just based on expectations and me creating the right culture and climate by walking this building and sitting in classrooms, that moved the needle. So the next year, I said, okay, we expected a little bit more. I said, now let's raise the bar a little bit higher. So that next year, we wanted to raise the bar a little bit higher. And what I did, I took the statewide assessment data from every middle school that was similar to our middle school, and I showed it to the teachers. And I just asked a simple question: is their school better than ours? You know, competition brings out the best in people.
Right.
I said, is their school better than ours? And that means everybody clocking in. Like, no, they not. So let's prove it. Then back to teachers leading your building, Dana Blair, my master scheduler, and DeWanda Wilson, they come to me with this brilliant idea. We should be a middle years IB school. I said, we should do what? We should be a middle years IB school. I said, listen, we hot right now. We on a roll. Kids are learning. Teachers are thriving. And you want to be, they was like, yes. So I was like, okay. So Charlotte Stokes was my former supervisor when I was a social studies teacher. She was in charge of IB programs. So she had this meeting with 5 principals. I wasn't invited. It wasn't personal, but I went anyway. My teachers wanted to be a middle years IB program, so I went to a meeting I was not invited to. See, this is how you get in trouble. I went to a meeting I wasn't invited to. They had to bring me another chair. Oh, okay, let's get go sit down. So I listened, you know, I'm taking notes about what it takes because my teachers told me to go. Mm-hmm. This was not Mark King's brainchild and brilliance. My teacher said, we want to be this. I was like, and that took me a minute. Now I just wasn't automatically like, oh, okay. Went, took the notes. Out of those 5 people, me being number 6, we were the only school to be accredited as a middle years IB program. And to this day, they are still a middle years IB program because the teacher said so. That's what I'm talking about when teachers run your building.
Right.
It's 1,000 kids in here. You don't run all this. And once you realize that and you leave your ego in your car when you pull into the parking lot, you'll be fine. But yeah, the teachers, it's teaching to learn. We had a website. I put it on the website. There was a picture. I never get it. Teaching improves student achievement 9 out of 10 times. It's not the principal. It's teaching. Are you putting them in a position where they can teach? Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you think about the education system right now, what are some of the things that you see that the school systems can improve on in order to, one, address the equity situation, mm-hmm. 2, to make the education system more functional and flexible for kids today, because kids today don't seem like they're getting much of critical thinking as they're going through this process. And 3, what is it about the education system that's dumbed down so much now that it seems like most schools now aren't doing those things that we were talking about earlier? They're only teaching to a test.
Training. You have to train the principals to be the principal. Somewhere along the lines, and I don't want to point fingers, and I don't know where it became. They just thought, oh, anybody can do that. No, anybody can't do that. I was the assistant principal for 6 years before I became a principal. You now have principals who have been assistant principals for a year or two, and then they make them the principal. It's not quite that easy. Education is the only profession in the world that does not have the proper training to do their job. How many years did your dentist go to school?
Well, he should have went about 6 or 7 years.
How many years did the lawyer go? How many years did the doctor go? But we
Okay.
minimalize the principle as the catalyst for educational success, but we're not training them.
Wow.
And that speaks to the equity part. You have to be intentional about training people to be successful. People management skills, equity skills, budgetary things. And also, you have not only are they not well trained, you have principals that are they're the school counselor, they're the assistant principal, they're the crossing guard, they're the security guard. So where in any other profession does one job get held responsible for all the other jobs? And then you want to fire the principal. Oh, that just wasn't a good fit. Did you train that person? And too often it happens to people of color.
Yep.
Because when I was assistant principal, like my 4th year, Richmond Myrick told me, he was a high school principal. He told me, don't let them make you a police officer. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, don't let them make you a police officer. Make sure you are instructionally sound and you know what's going on in every classroom. That changed my world. Now he's also a family graduate. He's passed on now, but yes. So when you are not giving people the tools to do the job, how do you get mad when they can't do the job? That's an equity issue for me.
Yeah.
Now there's some other parts of the question I need to get back to, and I apologize, but I just kind of got off on that one.
No problem.
Can you repeat the question for me? I want to make sure I get the other 2 parts of the question.
Yeah, there's just the 3 points that was mentioned was how do you address the equity part, but the kids are not critically thinking, and then on top of that, they weren't. Oh my God, I forgot what it was, but
That's okay.
anyway,
So
the critical thinking part is I think goes along with the equity part.
when you're talking about teaching children to critically think, you have to let children fail. That's how you learn. The learning is in the failure. The learning is not in getting it right because you knew that. The learning is in the failure. The first time you tied your shoe, did you tie it in a knot?
Look, I think we all did.
That's the failure. And you learned how to tie your shoe after that. The first time you tried to ride a bicycle, did you fall?
Yep.
That's how you learn. Because I've observed too many teachers, and bless their heart, they call on people who know the answer. I don't want to know who knows the answer. I want to know who gets it wrong and how you address that. If you walk through any schools in any district, and I mean any district, and you look at bulletin boards, every bulletin board is going to have every child with 100% on their paper. They got them all right. So if that's the case, if the bulletin board says that everybody in your class got 100, why is not everybody proficient? You posting this student work on the board and everybody got 100. So everybody should be proficient in. We know everybody did not get 100. Where's the feedback that you gave this child who got an 80, who got a 70? How are you helping them improve? Because remember, the lesson is in the failure. If you are not giving the feedback to make me better, you're not doing me any good. So you have that is how they learn to think when you give them feedback. I see what you did right here, but you should have cross multiplied right there. Child will say, oh, okay, I get it now. Now that's how they learn to think. So the next time they see that problem, okay, I got to remember to cross multiply this time because when I did it last time, I didn't cross multiply. That is critical thinking. Those are the skills that are needed in order for children to be successful.
Yes.
It's the feedback. And I feel the same way about adults. I give hard feedback. They tell me like, man, Dr. King, you hard. No, I'm honest. That ain't hard. It's fair. You want me to tell you it's okay when it's not? No. And then you have people tell me, oh, that lesson was great. Define great. Can you sit here and say that lesson was great and then define it? No, that's not feedback. That's wasting everybody's time. You sat in there, that's all you came up with. That's great. No. You did a good job circulating around the classroom, and then you addressed students who were off task. You also helped this child. You had to give people tangible feedback that they can use. That's what I'm talking about. Principal training, assistant principal training, making people instructionally sound, giving feedback so teachers can get better, and then they can become assistant principals. And then it's cyclical. Yeah, absolutely.
Talk about your work as instructional superintendent and the system level leadership that you provided to the school system. What was it like overseeing all middle schools in Washington, D.C.?
Refreshing. Because when I got to Washington, D.C., I had a supervisor, John Davis, who was willing to not do what everybody else had done and was willing to push the envelope. That group of principals in Washington, D.C. were the most dedicated, creative principals that I've ever worked with. Now, the Baltimore City principals I worked with, they work the hardest simply because the environment dictates that. But those principals in Washington, D.C. came up with answers, solutions, and questions. We go back and forth about what's going to work, what's not going to work, how can we try this? So it was refreshing to be put in an environment to where there were no boundaries. We could literally try to do anything to improve outcome for students, and as a result, improve the graduation rate because we improving the ninth grade retention rate. Yeah, it was really refreshing for me. I really enjoyed Washington, D.C.
So, how did DCPS achieve such historic NAEP and TUDA gains under your leadership?
Teaching. Me and principals understood that the crisis is in the classroom. It's not in your office. It's not in the hall. Get into these classrooms and provide feedback to these teachers so they can get better. Talk to your elementary principal colleagues who feed children into your building. Let them know the expectations. Go to those elementary schools. Talk to those children. Talk to those parents. Let them know what the expectation is when they get there. So it's vertical articulation. And as a result, my directive to middle school principals was, now you talk to the high school principal. You tell them about the 8th graders who are going to be their 9th graders, what they're getting. You are going back to the elementary school and talk to the elementary school principal and the teachers and the parents and the students, and you're letting them know your expectations when they get to you. So it was not a, like I said, once again, it was not a Mark King brilliance. It was a systemic plan to create a better 9th grader. Because remember, when I went to Washington, D.C., I had just left high school. So I was clear what the problem was by then. So it was a systemic plan to increase the student performance in 9th grade, which starts in 6th grade. We talked about that earlier. So you got to talk to your elementary colleague, Then you got to put in your work 7th and 8th grade. Then you got to talk to your high school colleagues, let them know what they're getting as a 9th grade student.
Wow. So, I want to ask you this because I've had so many Black men that have been that's in the education profession that's been here. And what I have found, in that whole entire practice of this is that there's been nothing but success, but the success is not recognized. And what I'm thinking, and I need you to correct me if I'm wrong, but what it seems like to me is that when guys such as yourself have to go in and continuously clean up the mess, the system is still not changing. So my question to you is, why is it that, and I'm sure that you guys are giving more feedback than can possibly be needed to make education be education, but it's not changing? Can you tell us why?
Systems are designed to get the results that they get. It is not designed for that. And until you change systems at a central office level, these are the results, because it was designed to get these results. You have to be exceptional at what you do for somebody to even say, he's actually pretty good. And the insult is actually pretty good. Like they didn't know that you were good. Oh, you just got this job because. So the system, the organization, the way we do things systemically has to change. When I made AYP with those teachers at James Madison, I also won the Excellence in Minority Achievement Award, and I won the State of Maryland Vanguard Award. Me and it must have been 16 teachers. We all went. I'm like, it's a good time. I had no clue I was going to win. So when I win, they are giving me all of the slogans that I had every year, because it was expect more, raise the bar, and now we're going to set the standard. So when they say this, I'm just like, oh. And the teachers look around me like, yeah. So when the state superintendent's like, good work, young man, we watching you. That was acknowledgement for me. Acknowledgement.
Right.
The system has to recognize and pour into you to make you the principal that you are, and they don't. So that's why you get the constant churn of principals every 3 to 5 years for urban school principals. There's no support. There's no support. That's why when I became a supervisor of principals for middle schools in Washington, D.C., and I supervised those principals in Baltimore City, I made sure I did 3 things: support, coach, and evaluate. Because support comes first. You have to support those people because there's context behind every data point in that building. You have to coach them to be better. My whole thing about it, I want to coach you so you don't need me. But then I got to evaluate you on how you implemented the support and how you took to the coaching.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your authorship in your book, The Middle School Master. What inspired you to write The Middle School Master?
When I first became a middle school principal, somebody told me, young man, good luck, because the answer's not in the book. And I can remember thinking, why? There have been people who have done this work. Nobody's ever written this down. So while I was a middle school principal, I started working on my doctoral degree. And you start doing research and you start implementing these things. And while you're still in the building, you're understanding the culture and the climate of a building. You learn how to manage people. So these are things I try to put into the book to help middle school principals or K-8 principals understand how to be successful at this. There were a lot of times when I disagreed with what teachers wanted to do, but I also understood that they're closer to the problem, so they know the solution better than me.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what I wanted to do was put in writing something for somebody who becomes a principal to say, let me read this and see what I can take from this. Now, all the answers not in the book, because I wish I could have put all the answers in the book, but all the answers not in the book. But there's enough in that book to make you a successful principal. From the master schedule to teacher training, the implementation of advisories, to the type of teachers that you need, the pathway, the pathways of children that are in middle school. So I tried to put enough in the book to where somebody could pick the book up and read it without having to use a thesaurus to understand what was in the book.
Let's see, but how do you teach people how to use a thesaurus? Because a lot of people don't know how to use that.
That's another. And that's another one. That's another one because but things had to be intentionally taught.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell principals all the time, if you buy the book and you call me, I have a conversation with you. Because remember, my obligation is to Eugene W. Grant and Thomas A. Blue. I have to make sure you are successful because if I don't, who will?
Mm-hmm.
That is my obligation to them. And I'm going to fulfill that obligation until God says that's enough.
Wow. So, when you think about your book, what leadership lessons do you hope readers take away from that?
Be collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
Leave your ego in your car. Understand that the problem that you have today will be there tomorrow. Don't neglect home. Be present in your house and at school. Understand developmental pathways of children because some things are developmentally appropriate. Help teachers understand what's developmentally appropriate. Understand your middle school teacher and what they're going through and what's developmentally appropriate for them. Understand that the teachers are the heartbeat of your building. Take care of them, and they will take care of the children. And most of all, be in the classroom. Be in the classroom.
So, how does your book address teacher capacity building?
That's principal's job. If you are the principal and you don't know my content area, that's a problem. Because you can't help me get better. Do you know how to give feedback, or do you just go observe? And I'm just going to use third grade math. And you're not a math teacher. Can you give me feedback on how to improve my performance? Or you gonna say, "Oh, that lesson was great. We talked about that earlier. Define great. Oh, you did a good job. Define good." You have to give actionable feedback to people so they can get better. And you know who wants actionable feedback more than anybody? Your best teacher.
Okay, the ones you were saying need to go back to the foundational part.
Exactly, because they want to get better.
Mm-hmm.
Your best teachers want your feedback so they can improve. So stop telling them, "Oh, that was a fine lesson." You ain't said nothing. You might as well tell me those are black shoes. That is nothing. You have to give people actual feedback so they can improve in their profession.
We discussed, when we chatted before the show, that we did Black History 365. And I asked you who were the most influential people in your life and career. And you did mention Dr. Grant.
Mhm.
You said Mr. Blue, and you also said Mr. Ward.
Yes.
Can you tell us who was Eugene Grant and how did he shape your leadership?
Eugene Grant was my junior high school principal. Back then we had junior high, 7, 8, 9. He was
Hmm.
my junior high school principal. his presence alone made me want to be that. Now, that's back then when they did use the paddle kids, so I did spend a little time in Mr. Grant's office. But there was nothing in particular that he said or did, him just being there. And you knew he was there. And you knew that there were consequences behind anything you did, good or bad. So
Right.
it was not always a punitive thing, but Mr. Grant lets you know who is in charge, but he also understood that you are going through a hormonal change where you are going to do some things that I don't think are appropriate. So I'm going to correct that because you can't take that out of here.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I learned from him. Like I said, it was really nothing in particular that he said, but his presence. And you knew he was there. Even if you didn't see him, you could feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always remember that down to the three-piece suits. And I wear three-piece suits today in memory of and because of Eugene W. Grant. No doubt.
Wow. So what lessons did Thomas A. Blue instill in you?
Consistency.
Mm.
Mr. Blue wasn't having it. You could walk out of your classroom, Mr. Blue would be around the corner. You're like, where you come from? So when I talk about the visibility piece, that's what I took from him. He was always there.
Mm-hmm.
Good, bad, breakup, fight, whatever. Just transition people, whatever the case may be. He was always there. So visibility and consistency is what I took from him.
The ward influenced your discipline and work ethic.
Mr. Ward was also the basketball coach. And Mr. Ward, he did extra as a basketball coach, but he was also a math teacher. So that was when I understood that Black men could not only coach, but they could actually teach an academic subject as well. Because he was a good math teacher. And he was a good basketball coach. And the thing that the transfer between the both of them was discipline. This is what we do. This is how we do it. These are the facts of math. This is how you have to do that. And it's because of him in 7th grade, I ended up in algebra 2 in 9th grade.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do these three men represent in your life story?
Besides my father-in-law, those were the most consistent men in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant something to me because remember, I grew up, me, my brother, and my mother. Those men, consistent, stability, empathetic, no nonsense. Those are things that are ingrained in me now that I take with me everywhere I go. Those things are things I can't even measure. So it's hard for me to even try to put into words what they meant to me. But it was, if I had to say in a word, everything.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you this. It also sounds like, from your description that that they've represented what it is to be strong in convictions, because it sounds like they have a lot of strength, and with that presence that you mentioned, that in itself stands alone as its own thing, because you knew, as you said, the consequences, but you don't want to be caught in the wrong way when it came to Mr. Grant. Because Mr. Grant didn't play.
He didn't play that. And he meant that. I've never heard Mr. Grant even raise his voice.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, come in. He was like, oh my. You already knew. And when I became a middle school principal and a high school principal, I didn't raise my voice like, man, come in. Man, I didn't do nothing. I didn't say you did anything, man. Just come in for a minute. Let me talk to you. That carried me throughout middle school and high school. Because like I know, you're not about to embarrass no middle school child, no high school child. Now you're gonna have a power struggle with somebody who doesn't have power, and you look like a fool.
Yep.
It's coming, man. No, I ain't coming. I ain't about to argue with you now. I'm gonna ask you one more time. And because we're not gonna have a power struggle because you don't have power. I am literally the principal. I will pick up this pen, sign my name, and you will disappear. You know it and I know it. So come on, man, let's talk about it.
Mm. Yeah. So how do you honor their legacy through your work?
When I wrote the book, they were in the anonymous because I wrote that book because of what they did and what they meant to me. I went back home. I did a book signing. Like I said, Mr. Grant had passed, but I did get a chance to talk to him before I went back home. I signed a copy, gave the book to his mother. I talked to his daughter. It meant everything to me, and everything I do is because of what they did for me. Because I go back to the obligation, man. I owe those people that. There would be no Dr. Mark King without Eugene W. Grant. There would be no Mark King without Thomas A. Blue. Because we all went to junior high and high school, people who just didn't make it.
Yep.
So without them, I might not have made it. I might be one of those numbers. I might be one of those statistics. No. I owe everything to them, and I make sure that I pay it back times 2.
So why is mentorship so critical for Black boys and young Black men?
Because we don't see Black men in suits and ties. We see Black men in sagging jeans and white tees, and we see them drinking malt liquor, and we see them smoking weed and doing whatever. And I'm not saying that's all we see, but we don't see enough of anybody to make them say, I want to be like that.
Yes.
I want to be like that. So I make sure at every time I went into a building when I was supervising schools, when I was a principal, I always went to school with a tie on. That's my uniform. So look, kids had a uniform, I had a uniform. If I don't have a tie on, like, you ain't got no tie on today. Look, it's Friday, man. It's dressed down Friday. Yeah, because they expect that. Mm-hmm. And the expectation should be that when you run into a Black male, he look like this. Right. And my expectation of you is when you grow up, you look like this. Yes. And you train somebody else to look like you. And you make sure they know that they need to train somebody else to look like you. That's the only way it works. Right. So yes, it's life saving. Mm-hmm. Literally, it's life saving.
How do you mentor the next generation of Black educational leaders?
You said how?
Yes.
I do presentations. I've done presentations for MCEL. I've done presentations for the Bond Academy at Bowie State. I try to do a lot of outreach just in general. I put a lot of stuff on LinkedIn to tell people to call me. I do book signings. I do book studies. I try to do a lot, but I can't do enough, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So what I'm trying to do now is through Arts for Learning Maryland, I'm trying to reach the classroom teacher to show them research and evidence-based strategies to improve instruction in their class and teach them how to differentiate the instruction and engage students. So now that makes you a better teacher. When that makes you a better teacher, you become a better assistant principal. Mm-hmm. Then you become a better principal. So through Arts for Learning Maryland, I try to be in classrooms to help them understand the differentiation, because what we do essentially, we teach teachers and artists to collaboratively plan together, and then they implement an academic standard, and they also infuse a national art standard. Mm. Right. So with differentiation, We teach them with the arts. We engage in students in a way that have not been engaged before. This is not to sit and do this handout. And it's also research and evidence based.
Let me ask you another question because I mean that's really interesting there. How do you actually get that mixture to mix like that where you add the arts and the cultural part to this educational system as a whole that you guys have? Because I think that in itself is like its own thing that actually is a thing that really works.
And that's the work I'm doing now. We we train our artists and we pay them in after school programs to collaboratively plan with a teacher. For example, you could say, all right, Mark King, you the artist. I got to teach fractions. How can I do that? Well, as a musician, I can tell you, a quarter note is also 0.25, but it's also 1/4. A half note is 0.50 while also being a half note. And it's also a ratio. So now I'm gonna play this quarter note when I go into the classroom with you. And we're going to tell children this is a quarter note. And we are
Right.
also going to pull out an actual quarter. So these are the things that are transferable simply because you are infusing arts into the lesson. So now a child will remember. I remember he played that note. He said that was a quarter note or that was a half note. Two half notes equal what? Well, that's a whole note. Two
Mhm.
quarter notes equal what? That's a half note. So now what I'm doing is using arts to infuse the academic standard into your memory.
Wow.
It's evidence and research based, and it's almost funny to me because when I was a principal, I was not this smart. But now when you see it, I'm just like, what was I thinking? Life could have been a lot easier if I had the foresight to give teachers the opportunity to collaboratively plan with somebody to help them differentiate instruction. And my whole point is now that I have taught you that lesson, next year, if the artist is not there, you can still do that. So it's
There you
also
go.
professional development.
Mhm. What does Black excellence in education look like to you?
Black excellence in education to me is 100% graduation rate of children of color, which means they had the foundational skills to pass high school. That's what because that is what I need. Cause I'm an old man, so I need somebody 18 to pick up this mantle
There you go.
and carry it forward.
Yup.
But I can't do that if I don't get you to graduate.
Yup.
So
So
that's what it looks like to be 100% graduation rate, children of color who go on to pick up this mantle and teach the next generation.
mhm.
That's what it is.
So how has Black history shaped your understanding of educational equity?
The denial of education was the ultimate equity issue. And now, again, I'm a FAMU graduate. You have the president of Florida A&M University, who was appointed by Ron DeSantis,
Oh God.
who I do not agree with in the least, and I'm trying to be respectful on your show,
Mhm.
but the denial and the removal of factual historical evidence is appalling to me. The whitewashing of what happened from 1619 until the redistricting that they're doing now. All of those things. And I told my daughter, she just graduated high school. She's going to Hampton in the fall. I told my child I couldn't send her to FAMU. I took her down there for homecoming. She said, I said, I can't sing the FAMU. She said, why? I said, because me and the president of FAMU, we don't see eye to eye as far as education is concerned. So she's going to Hampton. And I told her, because she wants to be a lawyer, I said, you are going to fight Civil Rights 2.5. Because we lost Civil Rights 2.0. We lost. We lost Civil Rights. So now she is going to have to fight Civil Rights 2.5 because of what has happened in the past 10 years and what was planned to happen over 20 years ago. So now your fight and your struggle is going to be more difficult. And I apologize to her because I will own it. Because what has happened is now you are fighting for your children. I said, so get ready, buckle up. Look, you Mark King's house, so you ain't no sissy and you ain't scared, but you got work to do.
Yeah. Final question for you. What message do you want young Black educators to hear today?
Be instructionally sound. Be instructionally sound. Nobody can ever take that away from you. If you are instructionally sound, nobody can ever take that away from you. No matter where they send you, what they ask you to do, if you know instruction, you know instruction. Don't be a police officer. That's not your job. Be instructionally sound, be in classrooms, be visible, and understand that every time you walk in that building, there is Mark King who is looking at you. So never go in there halfway. You almost, and it's ugly to say, you almost had to be perfect because Mark King is looking at you and he may want to be you. So be that.
Oh, wow. I like that. What are some words of wisdom and encouragement you'd like to leave with our audience for this evening, as well as how they could connect with you via your social media, your website, how they can get your book, all of those good things?
Okay. The book is on Amazon. So you can go to Amazon and get the Middle School Master. I'm about to do a relaunch for this group of people who have just become principals this year and become assistant principals. So I'm about to do a relaunch of the Middle School Master. That's on Amazon. I'm also on LinkedIn. Instagram is MEKing13, so you can find me there too. But I think the words of wisdom for educators, and don't quit. Don't quit. Because the number of African American, particularly males, and I don't want to disparage females, but the number of African Americans who are leaving education is scary to me. Because we talked about what those African American males meant to me, and I didn't mention June McKnight, and I didn't mention Miss Tyler, who are African American females who also taught me. So I do want to do that, but you can't quit. Somebody's life is literally depending on you going to work tomorrow. So, I mean, I don't know how philosophical that is, but yeah, don't quit on him. Don't quit on him. I know he does not display the behavior that you would like for him to display in class, but don't quit on him.
Well, I'll tell you like this. Dr. King, this was really great, and this has been very, very informative because, I think for those that are listening and watching, they should get the point of, what you're doing right now at the school that you're at. Because as you think about, I think I kind of like I affiliate that with some things I used to see back in the times when you and I were growing up, where they had what they call the School of Arts. And when they had the School of Arts, they had that educational component to it, but you never really understood what that was really like. But when you look at today and the concepts that you use, it's very, very important because it has an educational element that basically is for everybody to help everybody, but also to be pinpointed as you are learning, because the actual regular system, that's being used, it's not all the way, well, shall I say, it's not equipped. There's not the equity there to make it what it should be. And so I applaud that concept that you're using at your school.
I appreciate it.
For those of you that are watching on all of our channels, I appreciate if you would support us by subscribing and enabling all notifications to all of the YouTube channels. We stream live on 8 different channels, but on all of those channels, you are able to interact and be a part of the show. And we would definitely appreciate if you continue doing those things. Before I do this closing monologue, Dr. King, do you have a couple of minutes after I close the show?
Oh, certainly.
So in closing, I want to say, Dr. King, your journey reminds us that leadership is not a title. It is a responsibility to uplift, to challenge, to innovate, and to believe in the brilliance of every child. Tonight, you've shown us what it looks like to lead with courage, with conviction, and with a heart rooted in service. Your story is a testament to the power of mentorship, the importance of community, and the transformative impact of educators who refuse to accept anything less than excellence. You've changed schools, you've changed systems, and you've changed lives. And for that, we honor you. To our viewers, may tonight inspire you to invest in the next generation, to advocate for equity, and to remember that education is the foundation upon which freedom is built. This has been episode 81 of America in Black and White. I'm Charles King. I want you guys to stay inspired, stay informed, and stay empowered. Join us tomorrow night for another great show, and we will see you then at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a great evening.